Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy Boulanger, and up next, Harbs and the Response. Do me a quick favor as we get started. Hit like. If it is your first time checking out the GM, hit subscribe. Also, hit the notification bell so that you get updates when we upload new content. Let's talk about it. So, here we are turning our attention towards John Harbaugh so that I personally can close the frustration from week number 3. So, John Harbaugh is the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens and has been so for over 15 years. He's a Super Bowl winning coach. He's a coach who has a winning record overall, and he seems to be an all-around good guy. But the fact of the matter is, John Harbaugh does not seem to make the best decisions when it comes to in-game decision making. In fact, John Harbaugh has consistently cost the Baltimore Ravens games over the last 5 years. If you went back and you watched some tape and looked at the calls, you could count about 9 to 10 games for which John Harbaugh has made poor decisions when the game was on the line, whether to kick versus punt, go for it versus kick or punt. Whatever the situation may be, we've seen repeated poor decision making, including clock management. And unfortunately, there's another game lost due to John Harbaugh's mismanagement. With about 2.5 minutes on the clock and counting, the Baltimore Ravens ran Gardner Minshew out of the back of the end zone for a sack, which put the Baltimore Ravens up 19-16. And the clock ran down to about 1 minute and 56 seconds, according to what you could see on the game screen. Okay. I was so sure that the Baltimore Ravens would just simply run the clock out that I actually logged in and began to record my post game video. But I kept looking at the game and things just didn't seem right. Next thing I know, it was 2+ minutes on the clock, and the Baltimore Ravens were getting ready to receive the free kick. Um, the punt returner waits for a fair catch. And so the Baltimore Ravens get the ball on the plus side of the 2-minute warning. And so when you really look at it, you thought it was a referee snafu. You thought the referees had messed up the game. But when you really get down to it and you hear John Harbaugh speak about that end of the game scenario, what you learn is that John Harbaugh had an understanding that the game clock had been reset to 2+ minutes. We get an understanding that we had 2 timeouts available to our disposal. We get an understanding that a message had been communicated to the punt returner to call for a fair catch. And then all the other scenario unfolded. You see, when you're watching the game in real life and you don't have those details, right, you're wondering, why is the Baltimore Ravens kicking the ball back to the Colts with 1 minute and 45+ seconds on the clock, right? Didn't make any sense. You see, because I went into record mode simply because I thought that with 1 minute and 56 seconds left, the Baltimore Ravens would get the punt. A few seconds would run off the clock. The Baltimore Ravens would run a run play. The Colts would call a timeout. The Baltimore Ravens would run another run play. The Colts would do what? Call a timeout. Now the Baltimore Ravens have third down and whatever, unless they got a first down, and they would run another run play, which would run 40 seconds off of the clock, which would mean punting back to the Colts with no timeouts would have taken place around 1 minute or less. I thought surely that's how the game will go. But when we come to find out, nobody told the punt returner not to fair catch it, but to catch it and run. The question is why, John Harbaugh? Why didn't you see fit to call one of those timeouts and make sure that your punt returner, who is Zay Flowers versus Duvernay, which is another John Harbaugh decision, why didn't you make sure that that guy understood to catch the ball and run it under the 2-minute warning? That wasn't important. It wasn't important enough to make sure that we do all things necessary to seal this win, John Harbaugh. It doesn't matter that you take accountability after the game, because if you take accountability in game, you make a different decision. You see, the fact of the matter is, we just continue to see bad decision making after bad decision making, and it's costing the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I made a video a couple of weeks back that said John Harbaugh and EDC have to go if the Baltimore Ravens don't make an AFC championship. But I'm saying right here today that John Harbaugh and the Harbaugh regime, which includes EDC, all have to go win, lose, or draw. To me, at this point, it doesn't matter what kind of success that the Baltimore Ravens have this year. Short of a Super Bowl, everybody must go. And here's why. Because we saw this kind of stuff in 2021, we saw this kind of stuff in 2022, and here it is showing up again in 2023. John Harbaugh, for whatever reason, has an inability to make sound decisions about personnel, about game decisions, and about clock management. Let's jump to personnel for a second. Now, I know players themselves cannot help getting injured, but the rate at which Ravens players are getting hurt is alarming. If you go around the entire league, nobody has as many in-season injuries as we do. Why? Well, here's what I found out. I found out that although Steve Saunders and that crew was dismissed, there was some of that staff that was left over. You see, if I know that there was some controversy and some ill will and some ill intent and some mismanagement amongst that particular department, especially when it comes to player recovery and rehab and all those kind of things, it's going to be a clean sweep. It's not going to be any leftover. There's not going to be any residue of that old regime of mismanagement. But because John Harbaugh likes to keep everything uh, with what he's familiar with and what he's comfortable with, he didn't change the entire regime. Now, I'm not saying that that's a direct link to this plague of injuries that the Baltimore Ravens continue to have. But what I will say that there is some commonality to that. There is some commonality to the Saunders regime and what's happening now. There is some commonality that multiple players are getting hurt every year in mass amounts. And the common thing is that there is some of that regime left over. A common theme is that John Harbaugh is still a head coach. A common theme is that John Harbaugh has continued to show an inability to make sound decisions. You see, there's no end of game decision that's happening without John Harbaugh knowing. You see, a couple of other poor decisions. When it's 4th and 3, and that offense has not been killing it all game other than that first drive, you punt that ball and rely on the defense that has stood up all day to defend. You see, the thing that frustrates me about John Harbaugh and losing games on stupidity, not he the man is stupid, but the decisions that's happening in game are stupid. The thing that frustrates me is because there is a right decision to be made every time. Number line, Jay, you need to stop that. Every decision can't be right. Yes, there is. because there is a call, there is a decision that can be made that historically has been appropriate for the context of the game situation. Let me give you an example. If it's 4th and 3 and your offense has not been killing it, normal game situation says punt, right? Think about what I'm saying. Normal game situation says punt. If it's a 60-yard field goal attempt, a normal game situation says punt. It doesn't say go for it. It says punt. You see, there are some normal game scenarios that normal game situations can be made without John Harbaugh straddling the fence of indecision. And then when he makes the decision, it comes out wrong. This whole regime has to go. This whole regime. See, because the truth of the matter is we're going to get the same results over and over and over again. Why? Because everything that John Harbaugh is doing right now is comfortable and familiar to what he's always done. You see, I wonder, is Todd Monken just Greg Roman with a new name and a new face? You see, somebody in my comment section made this comment, and I'm gonna say it this way: what if Todd Monken is just a new name with a new face to do old bidding? Let me say it again. What if Todd Monken is just a new name with a new face to do OLD bidding, BIDDING? You see, because why would this year look very similar to last year? You see, my point in this is if nothing changes, nothing changes. And unfortunately to me, it doesn't look like anything's changing. Let me do something before I close out. I appreciate all the responses and the love shown for the my response to Lamar Jackson. But I do want to address something because it seems to be some type of misconception about me as the GM. Let me be very, very clear. There's several people directly and indirectly said that I was a Lamar Jackson hater. Several people said I was in fact, a secret Lamar hater. Well, for those of you who said that, I'm cool if that's what you think, but that just means you don't understand what it takes to be great. You see, if nobody holds us accountable, if nobody points out our weaknesses, if nobody says we need to improve, if there is no critique, not criticism, but if there's no critique, if there is no place for correction, we never improve and we stay absolutely the same. Imagine if you was on your job and let's say right now you're making $25 an hour, but top pay doing your job is $40 an hour. But your boss, your supervisors never come to you. The people around you, the people who ride with you, the people who grind with you, the people who care about what you do, they never come to you and say, hey man, I know you're making 25 and that's okay right now. But man, if you want to make top pay, here are some things you need to do. And when you get to that level, here are some things you need to do. See, if they never come along beside you and say, hey man, these are some things you need to improve on, then you stay right there at the place that you already are. See, you can't complain about making $40 an hour if you got $25 an hour work skill. You see, you can't complain about making $25 an hour if you got $25 an hour acumen. And see, and that's what accountability, correction, and critiquing does. It causes us to raise our level of performance. So, if being corrected, challenged, and critiqued could raise my level of performance, then the question would be, wouldn't you want that for Lamar Jackson? See, I'm not talking about the criticism from TV pundits. I'm talking about regular old fans of the Baltimore Ravens, been down since 96 for the Baltimore Ravens, been through the ups and the downs, losing seasons, winning seasons, Super Bowls, all of that. Been here since the beginning of the Ravens organization. That's my only agenda, is that the Baltimore Ravens wind up in the Super Bowl again. And if Lamar Jackson is my quarterback, then I want him to raise his level of play. You see, if I love somebody, if you love Lamar like you say you do, then you would want him to raise his level of play too. See, because to say nothing and to pretend like everything's perfect and everything's okay is to keep Lamar Jackson the same. And to keep him the same means he never gets to his very best. See, let me ask you a real serious question. Anybody who's watching this video, jump in the comment section and put yes if you think Lamar Jackson has played at his very best this year. You see, what I want you guys to understand is I expect greatness from Lamar Jackson because I believe he is that great. I watched, just like you guys watched, Lamar take pencils and paper clips and uh, paper as receivers and make things work for an MVP season, for a 2020 season when he won his first playoff game, so on and so forth. But is that all I want for Lamar Jackson? Is that it? A 2019 MVP? Is that all I want for our 260 plus million dollar quarterback? Is that all I want? Is to talk about the 2019 MVP? Is that it? Is that all I want to talk about? Is a 73% completion percentage? Is that it? Is that all I want to talk about? See, because if that's not all I want to talk about, then there is areas for improvement, and that's all I'm asking for: leadership. And let me speak to the three things. You see, leadership is necessary for any team to be catapulted into a championship situation. It's just the truth. Decision making, command of an offense. If you're talking about football, and handling the ball with care. Those are the three things I mentioned. So if that makes me a hater, then so be it. But if you don't want more for Lamar Jackson, then you the one that don't like him. That means you're the one that hates him, not me. I'm Miguel Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.